Hi guys, in today's video I wanted to talk to you about how to keep your goats inside of your fencing. I figure kidding season is upon us, and a lot of you who are interested in goats are going to be getting yourself some babies here soon, and I just want to share my experience with the trials and tribulations that we went through to keep our goats inside the fence, and I'm sure it will help you because we learned a lot. And yeah, let's talk about it. So I'm standing here at the top kind of corner-ish of our pasture, and I guess we'll start with this because this is the most probably important thing to keep in mind for your goats is space. Goats are very active. They love to play, they love to run, and I think they get this reputation for being escape artists because a lot of people keep them confined in areas that are just too small for them, and they just constantly want to get out of it. Think of it kind of like, you know, a horse in a stall. A goat in a small pen is just going to be miserable and constantly looking for ways to get out. So the way you combat that is you give them space. Okay, so our goats live with our two horses, and they all share a 3.5 acre pasture. So that's my first tip for you, is make sure that you give them enough space. They don't necessarily need 3.5 acres. That would be great. I would say minimum for 2 medium to large size goats would be 1/4 acre. That's minimum. 1/2 acre would be even better. Because I've seen them in their like little short bursts of energy where they, you know, they get their little goat zoomies, and the distance that they travel back and forth to really get up to a good running speed, they would need a good 1/4 acre to really sprint and have fun. So minimum 1/4 acre, but the more the better. This is Lois. Love you, Lois, huh? She's the sweetest goat ever. Yes, so sweet. Hey guys, I'm here in the hay shed, and just had another quick thought on just things to consider when you're having issues with maybe keeping your goats inside your fence. Pasture size, pen size, super important, but also if your goats are escaping, try to think about why are they escaping, not just how can I keep them in. Okay, so what I mean by that is, do they have enough food, and do they have things to keep them occupied? Do they have a friend? Do not get just one goat. Make sure you get at least 2. You absolutely have to get 2. Do they have things to climb on, to play with? All of that stuff is just as important as your pen size, your pasture size. So if your goat's escaping, that means that they're not happy with where they're living. So instead of just building bigger walls, make their environment more fun. Now I want to talk to you about the fence itself. So a lot of people told me starting out that goats will not respect a standard strand fence, whether it's poly rope or bare wire or whatever. That is not true, and we'll go over that in a minute. Most people suggested that I get some kind of woven fence, which is not bad advice at all. If you can afford that, by all means, go for it. That just wasn't in our budget. So I'm just going to show you what we've done, and it's working perfectly. Like, I have not had a goat escape in, well, really since we installed this fence. Yeah, no problem. So anywho, what we did is a 5-strand fence. The 3 lower strands, I'll bring you over here. The 3 lower strands are bare wire. Okay, 1, 2, 3. The top 2 strands are poly rope, and if you're not familiar with what poly rope is, it's a woven nylon rope that has wire filaments woven into it. So it does, I mean, it conducts electricity, obviously, but just not as well as the bare metal wire. And the reason for that is just the wire filaments are a lot smaller, and so it's just the conductivity of it is not just quite as good as bare wire. So that's why we decided to put the bare wire on the bottom, because that's kind of like goat height, and then the poly rope is on top because it's more visible for the horses. All right, now we're inside of the barn slash shelter, and I want to show you my fence charger. We have a 120 mile 6.7 joule charger. This is the most powerful charger that you can buy in store at Tractor Supply. This charger is basically made to keep bulls in. So if you can keep a bull in, you can keep those little brats in. Again, it's purely because goats are super curious. They love to check things out and poke things and stand on things, and there needs to be no question when they touch your fence. It's a holy shit moment. I will never do that again. Okay? I'm telling you, do not go less. Go with the big boy. You will not regret it. When we first started out, we did actually have a smaller charger. We had a 75 mile 4 joule charger from Zariba Fencing, I believe it was. And at that time we were actually using poly rope netting because we were rotationally grazing our goats. I'm going to show you that stuff in a minute. Bad. Did not work. Number one, the charger was not strong enough to produce a powerful enough shock that the goats would respect that poly rope netting. And number two, the poly rope netting itself, super dangerous because the holes in it were big enough for that a goat could stick his head through, which obviously you don't want. And we actually had a little accident, which I'll tell you about in a minute. That is poly rope netting that we used for the first 3 or 4 weeks that we had our goats. This stuff was absolutely awful. It's a hazard because the goats can fit their heads in there. Honestly, like, worst purchase ever. We actually had a goat stick her head through there and get caught. And thank God I was out and I heard her do it. We immediately turned the fence off and I had to cut her out of it. The next thing that well, I shouldn't say the next thing, really this is the last thing that you guys need to do is you need to train your goats to the fence. Sounds stupid. You're like, why do I need to do that? It's not stupid, okay? Goats need and deserve to be taught to respect the fence. So you're going to do that by attaching we use collars, but you can use a goat halter too. It doesn't matter. I really like these, just very simple, cheap snap goat halters. Or I'm sorry, they're not really goat halters. They're dog collars. Dog collars with a snap on them like that. Just because if they are pulling and I need to like release them quickly, I don't have to like cinch a buckle to pull it out. I can just use the little plastic tab and release it. So I like these. So what we did is we attached these collars to our goats and we just took them and stood beside the fence. I know that sounds cruel, but your goats need to be taught this. So you have to allow them to shock themselves safely with you there. Hi, Lois. So we put the collar on Miss Lois and we stood beside the fence, and of course she shocked herself. Now the natural reaction for a goat, a lot of people will tell you this, is they're going to jump forward. What you're going to do is immediately pull them backwards, okay? Because they need to understand that for that shock to go away, that pain to go away, the proper maneuver for me is to back up, not go forward, okay? So you do that by putting some sort of restraint on them. You got your collar and a little lead rope, whatever. Stand by the fence. They shock themselves, pull them back. make sure that, you know, you're strong enough to handle your goat. If you got a really big goat, make sure that you have enough power that you can control them, okay? And you're gonna do that, honestly, it doesn't take very much time. I think each of our goats shocked themselves 3 times within like a 10-minute period, and they got it because the fence is very strong. And they're like, not doing that, okay? Then the next step is they need to understand where the fence is in your property. So we've got 3.5 acres. So what we did is we took our goats on a walk, my husband and I together. They had their little collars on. We walked them just like dogs around the perimeter of the fence. And you would think, Marge, you would think that, oh, they'd make a mistake, you know, they'd touch their nose, maybe on the back pasture. No, they didn't. They got it. They understood that this is what this thing looks like. This thing hurts me. I'm not going to touch it. And I'm telling you, we have not had an issue since then. So as long as they got space, as long as your fence is strong enough, and as long as you've taken the time to show them how to back away from that pain and how to respect the fence, you will not have problems. So I hope that helps. All right, we're gonna sign off here because the kids are getting squirrely. But anyway, I hope that helps you guys. If you have any other questions on fencing and goats, just leave me a comment. I'll be happy to answer your questions. And yeah, have a great day. Like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Bye.